Hi there everyone, Lars here, with another Deltarune theory, brought to you by Camille's Harem. Not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers. Because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. And it's about time that I addressed Ralsei. This fluffy good boy is easily a fan favorite. His positive attitude and eagerness are just so endearing that you can't help but fall in love with him and then get enraged that he's so easily taken out in the boss battle against Jevil. Why, Ralsei, why? Shortly after the premiere of Deltarune's second chapter, a lot of people noticed that we were getting some mixed signals from Chris regarding Ralsei, and it became more apparent that the Prince of Darkness is up to something. As a result, a few prominent YouTubers quickly spun out some of their theories that Ralsei is actually a villain in hiding. He's in plain sight, and that we will be pushed into a corner somewhere in the future where we will have to fight against the good fluffy boy. A frightening and saddening prospect indeed if you think about it. So in this theory video, I will review the material that suggests that Ralsei might be a bad guy, and then I will present my counter-argument, hoping to prove that not only is Ralsei a good guy, but he might just be the biggest hero among the three main characters. So, without any further ado, let's dive into this craziness. YouTubers Swankybox and Mystic Slime put forth their evidences for Ralsei's hidden evil persona and eventual betrayal as thus. It's clear that Ralsei isn't telling us everything. It was shocking that he didn't tell us about the roaring early on until it was convenient to bring it up in order to frighten everyone when Noelle, Birdley, and even Susie decided to side with Queen. Why hold back this information about this horrible apocalyptic ending when you're with your fellow heroes and friends? And on the subject of knowing things, Ralsei has this uncanny and eerie knowledge of the light world, stuff that none of the other Darkners have expressed in any form. Even in cyber world, they don't fully understand the nature of the internet. They know how to use it, but it's still kind of like this weird thing to them. But Ralsei, on the other hand, seems to have a deep understanding of the other world in general. And Ralsei appears to be conquering the different Dark Kingdoms. He rules over everyone in Castletown, where Lancer, King, and Queen really have no more power, and their subjects now all defer to Ralsei. And Ralsei's castle seems to hold some kind of secret within it that he's not willing to share. And that's just a shade, shady. It's shady to say the least for someone who appears to be so open and a good friend and everything like that. And Ralsei breaks the game's rules. He shouldn't be able to go from one dark fountain to the other, especially jumping from the school and over to the library. He should be turned to stone if he manages to do that. But that's not the case. And then we see that Ralsei speaks to Chris without us getting any chance whatsoever of seeing or hearing what actually is going on. And he specifically manipulates Chris and the player to ensure that he has these conversations by hiding behind Susie. And Chris does not respond well to Ralsei's tea. If the tea theory is correct, that the characters are healed based on their level of feelings for the others, Chris wants to distance themselves from Ralsei, or at least doesn't fully trust him. And finally, Ralsei doesn't appear to be concerned about Chris's very apparent shock and feelings after the pacifist fight with Neon Spamton. He even deflects, and his comfort is not accepted by Chris, whereas it is Susie who is really able to comfort Chris to any sort of meaningful degree. Given these 8 pieces of evidence, it makes sense that Ralsei could be a villain. Furthermore, they make the argument that it could be a very engaging and emotional battle if Ralsei opposed us and we had to fight him, especially after coming to love him and know him for so many chapters. So yeah, that would definitely tug at our heartstrings, and it could be very important to the overall story. So let's not just take a heaping dump on these theories that Ralsei is evil, because there is evidence there, and it would kind of make sense. However, my own research into the story and playing the game multiple times suggests that Ralsei is not only a good guy, but perhaps the most burdened and respectable hero out of the entirety of this game, especially out of the trio of heroes. So let me explain by first examining exactly who and what Ralsei appears to be. Ralsei is a cheery, positive, helpful, outgoing, fluffy boy, and to a fault. His kindness brings him to the border of naivety, though he does mature after Chapter 1. With realizing that not all villains can be avoided without fighting, and he does pick up swear words and sarcasm along the way, Ralsei is also incredibly intelligent. He could do all of the puzzles himself, but he believes in positive affirmation and encourages Chris and the player to do everything in their own power to succeed. He even determines if there are any potential swears in the puzzles long before you or Susie do. And as far as we can tell, he treats even his enemies with far more respect and kindness than they often deserve, and gives clemency and autonomy to everyone who joins his growing kingdom. The only obvious exception being King. I mean, we can't really count the other kings and the monkeys because they just enjoy being in jail. The creeps.
See, you're in my house, Fatso, and you didn't ask permission. So you and your friends can leave now, or they can carry your fat ass out in a bucket.
Ralsei proves himself a real friend to Susie, though, helping her to grow as a person and learn the lessons of friendship. He reaches out to Lancer and becomes a friend to the young Darkner. And he does care about Chris. Again, if the T-theory is correct. And I think that it is important to note that all the Darkners exist to help the Lighteners, to help them become their best selves. It seems as if some Darkners also are specifically designated to certain Lighteners. Like, Lancer is meant to be paired off with Susie and to help her out, to learn what friendship actually is. And Queen is obviously paired off with Noelle and Birdley. Ralsei exists to help Chris, Susie, and the player. Yep, you heard that right. Ralsei is also there for you and for me. So let's then discuss exactly what Ralsei is. Ralsei is a Prince of the Dark, a Darkner who can fill the crucial third role in the prophecy. But it is true that he doesn't fit the normal parameters of a Darkner. That does make him suspect, but let's consider a previous theory of mine. That in the past, perhaps when Des went missing, Chris was taken into the bunker and the experiment was initiated. This experiment is what the game of Deltarune actually is. And given the most recent lore goodies given to us by Toby Fox, we know that a serious change came over Chris around this time. And it seems to correlate with when the Dreamer family started falling apart, and there are hints that even though Chris and Azrael were the best of siblings, they shared something dark between them. Just look at Chris's room in Ralsei's castle. There's seriously something going on here. Furthermore, there is a shocking resemblance between what we expect Azrael to look like and Ralsei, without his hat on. Bringing all of these elements together, it is very likely that Ralsei is a modified dark version of Azrael. Perhaps, though, that is not a revolutionary claim, and we lack outright confirmation, but given all the connecting threads, including the missing toy horns from Chris's youth, Chris's own conflicted feelings towards Ralsei, and even Azrael to an extent, and then the physical and personal similarities between the two fluffy boys, and more, I'm going to put my money on Ralsei being a modified dark version of Azrael. As a modified version of a Darkner, Ralsei can traverse the dark worlds without the normal consequences. This would complement actually many other theories out there, especially the idea that this game is partly a sinister experiment from Gaster, who has been playing around with all kinds of elements within the game and its worlds. But this is where things start getting very, very interesting. Ralsei in many ways even acts as an opposite to the Knight, the being who's going around and creating all of the other dark fountains. They both possess great knowledge about all of the worlds, the mechanics of the game, and the overall plot, which both Ralsei and the Knight put to their advantage. Where the Knight is spreading dark fountains and upsetting the natural balance, Ralsei is working hard to reverse it. We guess the Knight is a Lightener with a deep understanding of the Dark World, where Ralsei is a Darkner with a deep understanding of the Light World. Ralsei is therefore destined to confront the Knight, because the two are such opposites and their actions directly contradict one another. Understanding this begins to rip everything wide open. The Knight's use of the Dark Fountains is, at face value, kind of peculiar if we step back and think about it. Why are the Dark Fountains put into areas where the heroes could easily get to them? What is the purpose behind turning people like Jevil and Spamton insane? Does it look like the Knight's actions are purposefully guiding the characters along certain paths, taking advantage of the fact that this is a world where your choices aren't supposed to matter? So what is the Knight's endgame? Quite simply, we know it's to destroy the world. Now, we don't understand the motives or even the full means behind that goal, but we are watching this all unfold. Hometown is kind of unraveling by the end of chapter 2. The internet is down, no one can leave the town, the mayor is acting odd, the citizens are visibly confused, Father Alvin seems to be freaking out about what is happening in the background. Check out my 5 dark theories for more on that. And so it appears as though the Knight is succeeding in destroying both worlds. Ralsei therefore has to counter all of that, and without giving away the plot to the player. Remember this, Ralsei wants to pacify everyone and bring everyone together in friendship. He firmly believes that a good ending is possible if we get along with everyone, which is exactly what Toby Fox himself said is the purpose of the whole game. And still, players are just very happy to explore the different genocide routes that exist within this game, like Snowgrave. If we knew how to end the world early on with our actions, plenty of players would go out of their way just to do that. Ralsei is trying to guide us, the players, to make good choices and come to care for everyone and make friends, which is a very difficult task. And honestly, this just makes Ralsei's job extra hard because we control Chris, and the help they need is very different from our own. Ralsei is trying to help Chris overcome their problems and make friends with others, but there are clear family issues, personal problems, and the fact that Chris is actively working to undermine the player, like in the Spampton quest line. All of which is more than one cute goat can handle all on his own. And helping Chris means potentially directly exposing that Ralsei knows that we, the player, control Chris. It could give away all kinds of aspects about the game that we could then use against Ralsei's goal, such as the roaring. The moment we learned about that, a ton of players were like, oh, that would be fun to make that happen. Ah, yeah, let's help Chris open up more dark fountains. Let's go! So Ralsei has to help Chris without somehow giving away stuff to the player, and help the player without betraying Chris. No wonder the poor teen is not endeared to Ralsei in Chapter 2. But then there's Susie. And this is where Ralsei does have a clear victory so far. He's supposed to help Susie understand friendship, kindness, and mercy. By Chapter 2, Susie is way more into this whole friendship biz, and she excitedly runs off with Ralsei on an adventure all on their own. Ralsei then comments to Chris how much Susie has grown, and checks in with Chris on how their relationship is with the Dragon Girl. But it's clear at the end of Chapter 2 that not all is done just yet. Susie is willing to risk the world's destruction, finding a way to merge the dark and the light worlds together so she can bring all of her friends together. So Ralsei still has to work to keep Susie on the straight and narrow. Then, when we bring all of these observations together, Ralsei is trying to counter the Knight and save both the light and the dark world, while being burdened with the information that has shattered multiple characters' minds like Jevil and Spanton, and even Sham, and that's already a Herculean feat that Ralsei isn't just crumbling from the start. But then Ralsei also has to help the player, has to help Chris, and has to help Susie overcome their issues and form healing, healthy relationships. And then, of course, Ralsei has to overcome his own problems, embedded in his very origins. Ralsei doesn't fully understand himself either, and is looking for guidance. Yeesh! Just imagine that. Being born knowing that you're supposed to be a hero and stave off the worst calamity imaginable, while also tasked with helping 2 other reluctant heroes you need in order to succeed in your overall quest, and then on top of that, you realize that you only have your name and identity thanks to this prophecy. Ralsei is operating underneath an iceberg's weight of mystery, responsibility, and internal conflict. When you add all of these things up, it becomes apparent that Ralsei could very well be the best hero among the 3 because he is dealing with so much and honestly doing his best. However, this does not discount the amazing personal growth that Susie has undergone or the trauma that Chris has undergone, nor does Ralsei's Paragon status excuse his earlier mistakes in Chapter 1. Deltarune is a story about growing up. it is a story of friendship. It is a tale where horrible things happen to people, but if the right choices are made, goodness can win out, and people can be healed. Ralsei knows this, and that is why he holds so firmly to the prophecy and to the best route of choices possible. He is that voice in the dark, encouraging and guiding you through what seems like a bizarre fantasy, while really it is an adventure through ourselves. So Ralsei is a prince of the dark. He's a fluffy good boy. He is an amalgamation and a horrifying experiment. He is a quiet hero, and he is supposed to become our best friend. And that's why I believe that Ralsei is not evil. Now, this is a channel for novice writers after all, so to close, what kinds of writing advice and storytelling insight can we glean from this examination of Ralsei's character? Well, first of all, common mistakes among many novice authors is to give everything about their characters away right off the bat, and then throughout the story, they rarely deviate from what they established in the first chapter, and their characters almost never change. It's thoroughly uninteresting to learn everything there is to know about a character right off the bat. Let us get to know your characters, not just through character descriptions, but through multiple conversations with others, their actions, and how they respond to the events within the plot. It can really pay off to leave some things undescribed or unexplored until later, when it could be far more interesting and rewarding. The hard thing is to make sure that these moments don't feel like a sudden addition that comes out of left field. To avoid this, lay out your character beforehand, in your own notes, in your outline. And if there is anything you want to reveal later, leave some hints and some clues, but don't give away everything to the reader until it is time. Next, in the theories where Ralsei is speculated to be evil or an eventual enemy, it is argued that this will be a meaningful fight. This most definitely can be the case, but a fight is only emotional when we are fully invested in the participating characters and understanding the fight's stakes. This takes time to set up. Many experienced authors do not understand this and throw meaningless fights at their audience, expecting them to be wowed. You can get away with this with a few frivolous fights, but eventually the reader loses interest in these battles because they just don't really care. The emotional weight and investment isn't there. Trust me, it does take time to build up a good fight. Finally, this is going to sound a little bit weird to hear me say it out loud, but please bear with me. You are neither as smart as you think or as transparent as you fear when writing a mystery. Yep, there have been many times when I've thought that a mystery I've written was just too good to be figured out, and then a beta reader answered it within 5 minutes. And other times I thought I was just being way too obvious, and then all my beta readers could never figure it out. They fell for all of my misdirects. Ralsei is an enigma that could be easily understood, or we are all off base. We just don't know yet. But one thing I am confident about is that Toby ran his story by a small circle of friends and helpers and got the necessary feedback for writing Ralsei as a mysterious character before he released Deltarune Chapter 1. And you need to do the same. Pass your mystery writing and twists by entrusted editors, beta readers, friends who won't go blabbing on you, but who will give you honest feedback. That is the only way you can confirm the strengths and weaknesses of your mystery writing and your expected twists. Well, that's all for this right now, and with the newest rush of information regarding Deltarune's upcoming chapters, you can definitely expect more from us about this game. Working on this video has inspired me to dig a little deeper into the heroes' journeys that are experienced by our 3 main characters. So that's going to be fun to do. And in the meantime, if you want more Deltarune goodness or writing advice, please check out our other videos here or head on over to our podcast, Camille's Harem, found on Podbean, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, the works. We have writing exercises for you over at our Pinterest page, and we would love for you to join our growing community of novice authors. Links for all of that and more are in the description below. Thank you for joining us on this adventure that we call writing, and until the next video, y'all, tschüss.